I created a poll and asked you, my viewers, the question: what should the next What If topic be? I originally had a Control Spire episode scripted and planned out, but if you want the 7 deadly sins, you got it. For this episode, I will not be covering any Beelzemon because, let's be real, Beelzemon is the most supported demon lord, and also because Belphemon was recently released in Japan, this Digimon will also not get the treatment either. So this episode will be covering the remaining 5, along with potential effects they revolve around. With that, let's get going into this sinful episode. First, Lilithmon, the demon lord representing Lust, has a when digivolving effect that lets you play one option card from your hand or trash for its memory cost. For every 10 cards in your trash, reduce the play cost by 2. Purple decks are the gold standard for filling their cards with trash, and because of this, each demon lord will have a specific effect tailored to them. Lust can be represented by excessive desire, but for the sake of keeping this video more towards PG than PG-13, I'm going to just leave it more of as a waifu tax. Lilithmon also has an all turns effect where all turns, once per turn when an option card is played, gain 1 memory for every 10 cards in your trash. So if you don't have the 10 cards, you won't gain any memory, but if you have 30 cards, you'll be able to really put a damper on your opponent's strategy on their turn. At first I considered this as a multiple times per turn effect, but this also introduced potentially a lot of memory plays. Weakness wise, this demon lord is not very affected by decks that do not run that many option cards. In the case of our current meta, Crossheart, Raid or Greymon would be few examples that don't care about this card, but X-Antibody decks would feel very threatened to be taxed on their X-Antibody option play. Pride, on the other hand, is represented by Lucemon, and while yes there is already fall down mode from BT7, I wanted to tie it closer to the Frontier story. For this Digimon, it stomps on weaker Digimon and absorbs their data. If you happen to have Lucemon in play, you can place 2 Digimon underneath it to make the cost 6. You're not reducing, you're not gaining memory, just a flat 6 memory. However, if both Digimon placed in the sources were level 6, like throwing back to the Frontier series of Lucemon absorbing Dynasmon and Lord Nightmon, the cost becomes 0. Main: while this Digimon has a level 6 or higher Digimon in the Digivolution sources, this Digimon is unaffected by card effects. For my symbol of Pride, this Digimon refuses to yield by simple card effects and will only leave the playfield if attacked. However, on deletion, Lucemon is a spiteful character and will delete one of your opponent's Digimon or Tamers on the way out. Now, Leviamon represents the symbol of Envy. This Digimon has a when digivolving effect that gains you 1 memory for each Digimon your opponent has in play. Then if you have less than or equal number of Digimon in play, this Digimon gains Security Attack +1 and Piercing. You know, I really wish I had the same number of Digimon you had right now. Oh wait, I can if you play Digimon. A lot of this Digimon's effects came from looking over existing purple cards, and Minervamon was an amazing template. However, instead of only playing 1 Digimon, you play an additional 1 if you have 10 or more cards in trash. Meaning if your opponent's playing D-Brigade, you might be able to play up to 4 Digimon a turn for the crackback. But even though you might be thinking, if my opponent has a wide board already, I'm just going to lose. Nah, I'm sure there'd be inheritables that give your level 4 or lower Digimon blocker. Weaknesses for this demon lord is that for stack building in the Rays, if they're only at 1 Digimon in play, you don't get much advantage. But for the next demon lord, it could be very beneficial. Daemon, as I will refer to in this video instead of Creepymon, is actually supposed to literally be called Daemon. This Digimon represents the sin of wrath, and for that, gets a very destructive effect. When digivolving, delete one of your opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon in play. If you have 20 or more cards in your trash, delete all other Digimon in play. Additionally, if a Digimon was deleted by this effect, the rage was so much that the Digimon in the raids has been intimidated from coming out of the breeding area for the next turn. And finally, all turns, once per turn when one of your Digimon is deleted, delete one of your opponent's Digimon with equal or less level. When a Digimon is deleted, gain 1 memory. Although stat-wise it's admittedly weaker, the effects themselves can be very destructive. This will be one of the first Digimon that introduces an effect that targets the breeding area. so if you're a raised deck, don't leave a Digimon out for this Digimon's when Digivolving effect. Barbamon is the last Demon Lord for this episode, and represents the sin of greed. And honestly, this one was kind of fun to make up. When Digivolving, you place all cards in yours and your opponent's trash to the bottom of the deck. For every 10 cards returned, gain 1 memory. All turns, when your opponent draws a card by effect, draw the same number of cards. Your cards, our cards. While this can provide you a lot of advantage and resources for your next turn, at the start of your turn, every turn for every 10 cards in your hand, trash the top card of your opponent's security. Purple is interesting though in that a lot of your effects do not net change your hand overall like blue. Eismon Scatter Mode is arguably the only one that does change your hand size by a net of 1. Still, while Barbamon does have the trashing security effect, its effect is also only usable at the start of your turn. Meaning if your opponent can remove Barbamon before anything happens, well that stinks. This episode will not feature Agudamon nor will it feature Lucemon Satan Mode, but instead, on these Demon Lord baddies and their artworks based in line with the Beelzemon from the starter deck, what are your thoughts on the effects? Too powerful, or in line with what you'd expect for each of their sins and status as Demon Lord? Let me know your thoughts because this was one of the most fun episodes I've worked on to date. And as always, thank you so much for your support. This is DigiPanda, logging out.